So we're going to look at task 4, and as we all should know, that it's based on a scenario which is Downton Instruments. Now, I've had a student who once emailed me and says, is it worth me reading the scenario before the exam? It's like, why would you not? But then more often, I get people coming up to me and go, do I need to learn the scenario off by heart? And the answer is definitely not. Because AAT is not a test of your memory, because I wouldn't be AAT qualified if it was. It's a test of your ability to deal with scenarios, come up with solutions, and provide advice. So the scenario's there, read it once, move on with life. Memorizing that is not going to give you loads of marks. Like, say, ask you for some figures. Any figures that you can calculate before the exam are not going to be in the exam, because your mate could then calculate them and you've just got a very good memory. Not going to happen. What's going to happen is you're going to get some sort of what I call impact information, which comes from when I did chartered. It's not called that. I'm literally making that up. That's why I call it impact information. Something's happened and you've got to deal with it. And you will only get to find out what has happened or what the issue is in the exam. So here you've got task 4. It's obviously based on Downton Instruments, but all the marks to this task are in the scenario given to you in the question, not in the pre-release. So this is where you need to be looking. And this task here, I quite like this task because it really focuses your mind. And we've got to come up with some weaknesses, and then it asks for potential impact on you and the potential impact on Downton Instruments. Now, I have marked a load of INAC mocks today. Marking INAC mocks for a living is not the most fun you can do, but it's the way the world works. You can't have really good pass rates if you don't mark the mocks, and pass rates lead to awards. I like winning awards. You got to put the work in. And so I've seen loads of this, and I've seen lots of examples of this literally today, of what is the, I don't know, one of them was non-financial cost to Downton Instruments. Come up with one of them. And it says, so-and-so in credit control is stressed and overworked. And sucks to be them, but the question asks, what is the non-financial cost to Downton Instruments? And someone being stressed and overworked, without being, mercilessly brutal, that's their problem. What we're looking for is, what is the implication for Downton Instruments? And if someone's stressed and overworked, they'll leave and we've got to replace them, might have to pay, recruitment, or we have to do training, or they might start making mistakes, or they might go off long-term sick. That's the implication for Downton Instruments. So I like this question because it goes, what is the potential impact on you? And you've got to focus and put yourself in that scenario. And then it says, what is the potential impact on Downton Instruments? These are not the same things. So when you come to your exam, be very clear as to, and that is the secret to this exam, is be very clear that the answers you're giving answer the question asked. So you write something really cool, but it's not answering the question that was asked, no marks. Because obviously these scripts are marked by different people, and people are human, they are different. So to make it fair, there is a very strict mark scheme. And the marker wants to go, did they do this? Yes. Did they do this? Yes. Did they do that? No. They don't want to be going, what they don't have is freedom to go, well, it's quite a good answer. I really like what they put. I'll borrow some marks from here, or move some marks around, or I'll give them some extra marks because it's an interesting point. If it's interesting but doesn't answer the question, it's no marks. It is brutal like that. So I like this question. So we're going to break down is literally, what is the impact on you? You've got to put yourself on you, and then what is the impact on Downton Instruments? So the first thing I would do before I start any question on like this, and you've got the pre-release, is I would not read, sorry, not the pre-release, when you've got the impact information, I would not read the impact information. Because what's going to happen is you're going to read it, you're going to forget it, and then you're going to go, what do I need to do? And then you have to reread it. Because there's going to be some stuff in there that's probably not all that interesting, and you're trying to take it all in. What you want to do is read it knowing what you are looking for. So we've been asked to identify 4 weaknesses. And I want to put the emphasis on, is identify. So identify is a very short question. Sorry, very short answer. Identify is literally identify or state. Things like that are really, really short. It then has asked you to explain the potential impact on you and the potential impact on the company. So these want to be longer form questions. So you can get away with identify, just go, this is the weakness. Well, obviously you've got to state the weakness, what it is, but that's what it is. So it's identify is a very short answer, whereas explain, you cannot just say, chuck 2 words on it, because that is not an explanation. So we've got 4 weaknesses in a process. We're looking for weaknesses, and then from there, we can come up with different impacts for us, different impacts for Downton Instruments. Now, the impact are not going to be there. We've got to come up with them. And you can, so I'm expecting you lot to come up with them, and the more left field, the better, well, more interesting, should we say. I'll go completely off piste. But the weaknesses are in here. So here's our scenario. We have recently joined Downton Instruments and the central services team. The interview was conducted by John Anderson, the office manager. Do we think that's a weakness or not? There will be things there that are not weaknesses. I typically, when I interview, I like to have 2 people versus 1. But honestly, I don't think the fact the interview is often by the office manager is a weakness. The company has no human resource manager. So John telephoned you to let you know you had got the job and discuss details, including working hours, pay rate, and to obtain your bank details. What do we think to that? Yeah, Millie, I would totally agree with that. The fact that pay, etc., was discussed over the phone. So that's fine. So we've identified a weakness. Now, you won't be able to draw and then a W next to that, but we've identified it. Now, this is the bit where you get the lion's share of marks. We need to explain the potential impact on us and the potential impact on Downton. So what would be and obviously I want to put the emphasis on potential. You can, as long as it's sensible, relevant, and feasible, it's fine. But what could be potentially the impact on us if our pay rate and working hours, etc., were agreed over the phone? Yeah. Well, that's one. I would have milked that into 2, but yeah. So let's go with that. Let's go with you. So the bank details and so what I would say, and Millie, you're exactly right. What we don't want is you say the bank details could be wrong. That is not explaining the potential impact. That's just a cause of weakness. So the bank details could be wrong. I don't know why I'm writing. I'll change it to black. Therefore, you don't get paid. So you really got to take it to the end result, i.e., you don't get paid. So that's the kind of explanation we're looking for, not, the bank details could be wrong. Like, yeah, but what is the actual impact on you? Your company having, if First Intuition got my bank details wrong, would I care today? Nope. Would I care tomorrow? Nope. Would I care on payday? You betcha. Kind of thing. So the issue, the end result is me not getting paid. Very, very important. What's the potential impact on Downton Instruments of the bank details being wrong? I'm changing this to black because it's annoying me. And I'll give you a clue. What I'm not looking for is unhappy employee, because that's their problem. Yeah, effectively. Well, yeah, they paid someone else. Say a transposition error. They pay the wrong person, and then lose this money. What else? I mean, it does actually, here I would only be looking for one good, well-explained point, but what else could be a potential impact for Downton Instruments? Again, it can be various different things. Yeah, Natalie, I totally agree with that. Employee dissatisfaction, but how does that affect Downton Instruments? So if you've got a dissatisfied employee, yeah, bang on, Millie, I would give that, employee leaves. Remember, when people generally join, they're in the probation period, which means you can get rid of them quite easily, but they can also leave without much notice period, and suddenly they've gone, you lost someone, and you've got to recruit very quickly. And you get recruitment costs. Cool. What else do we think for weaknesses? So we've dealt with the bank details specifically. Any other things that could be a weakness? You are, Kelly. I like that answer. I had never thought of that one before. Yeah, so John's the only one who's met this person. Is it John with an H? Does it really matter? It is not with an H. Now, thinking about it, I probably wouldn't go with this answer, thinking about it further, because if you're a ghost employee, what's the impact on you? Because you don't exist. Now, I do totally agree, Kelly. I think this is a very good weakness, but I was just thinking about getting marks for this. I possibly wouldn't go down this route because you don't exist. Just because of what the question is looking for. Yeah. So if this was like a fraud type question, or even if it didn't say the potential impact on you, I would have liked that one. I really would. But obviously I wouldn't put, there's no impact on me because I don't exist. Wouldn't get very many marks. So very good answer, but not to this question. I would probably hazard a guess. What have we got? No contract to sign. And we'll go with that. So what do we think about no contract? So what is the impact on us if we haven't got a contract to sign? Exactly. They literally could just terminate you on your spot and you have nothing agreed to say you've got to give you X number of weeks notice, X number of weeks pay or anything like that. They could just say, grab your stuff and go. Employment on the spot. No warning and no pay. And what's the potential impact on Downton about this? If the employee hasn't got a contract. Again, the employee could just leave on the spot. But taking it a little bit further, the employee disappearing, what is the impact on that? Is this I'm going to get back to that question. Anna in 2 secs. I just want to take this one to the nth degree. So if the employee leaves on the spot, what is the actual tangible, specific impact or potential impact on Downton? Yeah, we'll go with that one. Any other impacts? If you've got if you're an employee down, what else might you need to do? Where would insurance come in? I'm not saying it's wrong, but you've got to say, why would it be? Well, so the insurance company probably is the answer to that. I would probably say staff handbook. If they've not been given a staff handbook and they injured themselves, and the insurance company would pay about. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to agree to that, but I would say staff handbook. But anyway, it's all different. Yeah, so management might be overloaded. Or the other one I was thinking of is overtime. You might have to pay other people overtime to cover that person's work that they've left. And obviously you pay them a lot higher rate, an overtime rate, than what you would have paid that person if they hadn't just sharked off. I'll come back to Anna's question about weaknesses. Now, I would say if you can come up with something that can lead to fraud, if fraud can happen, there's a weakness in the system. And so that's really a relatively reasonable weakness. Again, we're looking for something that's sensible, reasonable, and feasible. In this, there are, you can come up with quite a few things that we've seen here, different impacts and things like that, and they're all sensible. I'm not going to say every single thing's ever going to be right, but loads of different good ideas come up so far tonight, and all good ideas. So right, where we're at, we've done 2 now. Right, we haven't received a weakness. We haven't received a contract, so that's a weakness. I'm sure someone did this. We've lost it, but someone mentioned no pay slip. I've got a brand new laptop this week. It's amazing, but it keeps popping up all these things like, did you know it does this? And I thought, I do, actually. So what is the impact on you if you haven't got a pay slip? Yeah. So you can't check. You can't check basically your pay, but that includes gross pay, your tax code. Now, I'd hazard a guess this person couldn't work out if their tax is right or wrong, and that sort of thing. But also, you can't check that what you've been paid is what you should have been paid. So it can be a case of you worked out what you got paid, and then there's a transposition error on the back's payment or something like that. Cool. What's the potential impact on Downton? If your employee hasn't got a pay slip? Yeah, I mean, the first one is you have a legal right to have a pay slip. So you might face penalties. Yeah, I mean, penalties. Anything else? Anything else that might affect Downton if their employee hasn't got a payslip? Now, we could go back, similar theme to other potential. Yeah, I mean, that is, I mean, if this payslip doesn't even exist, really, I mean, it could be the case. This going back in the day when I used to do payroll, they were dark days, but when I worked in payroll, you'd stick a gross figure in Sage Payroll, hopefully you set up the things and the net pay comes out. And in theory, if the employee was underpaid, they would shout. If they're overpaid, hopefully would shout. Yeah, the pay might actually be wrong. And so if the pay is wrong, you've got what else? What's the sort of implication that could come out of that? Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you go with that one, Amy. You might overpay or underpay. Now, underpay, an employee's a bit hacked off, which obviously affect the reputation with you. They might leave, and again, all the recruitment things. But if you overpay, I've seen it before. I did the accounts for a underwear importer from Italy. Sounds more exciting than what it was. Anyway, for whatever reason, we did the accounts. And for whatever reason, during the year, randomly, they got this other person in from another firm of accountants to do some payroll stuff rather than asking us. And I took great delight in pointing out that the director who left under a cloud had been overpaid by this other accountant, and they were clearly never going to get it back because he'd gone and whatnot. And there's much shock that I don't want to experience. I was like, well, if you come to a proper firm of accountants, it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And obviously, NI, pension, tax, that's all we calculate. Now, that is the responsibility of the employee. I'm teaching that actually on Monday. It's the taxpayer's responsibility to make sure I don't know why I'm showing you can't see the tax book, but it is there. I have been looking at it today. It's the employee's responsibility to make sure they're paying enough tax and NI. Now, if the employee has been overtaxed and it all gets sorted out, basically they get the tax back. It's a nice little bonus they weren't expecting. They've been undertaxed. The employer goes, oh, we've made an error on your tax code. You've been undertaxed. Now you've got a tax bill that you're going to have to find that you probably weren't expecting. Going to upset your employee. They're going to lose all confidence in you, and they're going to think, why am I working for this load of monkeys? And they're going to leave, and you're going to have to replace them. Yeah. Cool. I think we covered quite a few answers on that one. Went down a bit of a rabbit hole on that one. Anything else? Any other weaknesses you can see? We've dealt with the lack of a pay slip. Now, I thought of one further up. So this one here about over the phone. What we did there, we just linked the bank details. Any other issues that could have come out of that? Because these bank details were passed on to Deborah. They could have been written down wrong. But what else could be wrong about having a discussion over the phone about what they discussed? Or theory we discussed. Yeah. So when you discussed, your working hours and pay rate, I mean, it could, you could expect, oh, I'm getting, I don't know, 30 grand, and he'd written it down, heard it as 13 or vice versa. And your hours, you might think, oh, I've got in my head, I'm starting at 9 o'clock, and then, expect to be there at 5 to 9 as well out there. Yeah, there's no record of what was agreed, and especially if you then aren't given a contract. So you're effectively signing up to this thing, agreeing it without anything in writing. So the offer wasn't in writing. So you're thinking this is what I'm going to get. Turn up on day one and say you did get a contract. It still might be very different to what you thought you were getting. Yeah, there's no record of it. And to be honest, when I offer people jobs, I tell them over the phone. I then do tell them, don't hand your notice in until I give you a formal written offer, because you don't hand your notice in with your current employer and then you get nothing in writing, or what comes in writing is not what you would agree to, and you don't want your current employer to know that you're leaving or looking to leave, because you're not going to be flavour of the month. Anyway, right. So the offer's not in writing. What is the impact on us with this? So what would happen if, or what could possibly happen if you thought, yeah, the job might not be, isn't what we thought we would sign up. And that can be related to hours, pay, bonuses, I don't know, conditions, anything. Yeah. And what about the employer? What's the potential impact on them if they've got an employee starting on day one expecting something different to what we're going to be offering them? Yeah, I mean, it comes back to that same old thing. Potentially lose the employee, and then that you would write it properly, but that leaves things like recruitment costs and overtime, or just to make it a bit different, might be unfulfilled orders because you've got no staff. Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. I totally agree with you, Natalie, about a difficult conversation with your employee. I'd still want to take it to the nth degree of what's the actual impact on them is time spent on that, having a conversation that you didn't need to have. If they knew exactly signing, they're happy to sign up, that's fine. If they didn't, they could just do it there. But take it also to degree, what's the true underlying cost in it? I do agree with you, Catherine. The employee may turn out not to be suitable, but I mean, I know situations in a previous life where people were given a formal offer, people were given a contract, and still turned out to be completely unsuitable. But it does, reduce the risk of things going wrong. Like I say, we come up with quite a few different impacts here. You will not need to know. What we're not looking for, if it says explain the potential impact, it is literally looking for the potential impact. What we want is one really good, well-explained impact and going to the right nth degree of how it affects you or your employer. What I'm not looking for is three really short impacts, like unhappy employee, wrong hours, pay wrong. We don't want three things like that. We want one really well-explained point. So explain is definitely more about depth than breadth, whereas identify, sometimes it'll come up with like identify 3 or 4. That's definitely more about breadth. And if it says 4, make sure there's 4, but don't go into some 4, if you write 4 very short things and the question is identify, you get the same number of marks as the person who puts 4 really long explanations in. You're not going to get any extra marks by explaining when you don't need to. Conversely, if you don't explain when you need to, you will lose marks. But with this sort of thing, can you see how it, I was going to say there isn't any right or wrong answers. There are wrong answers. But you can, as long as you are analysing the situation and come up with something that is sensible and explaining it where required, they've almost got to give you the marks. But you've really just got to take it like to the nth degree. Don't just say there's a weakness and then something that happens, like an activity. Really, what is the actual impact? So like real cost, what is the loss? What is the damage? Really go right to the end of this issue and say, what is the problem? And make sure it relates to the right person. Any questions on that before we finish off on part B? Cool. So here we've got some multiple choice ones here. You will get drop-down boxes or link the boxes or radio buttons where you A, B, C, or D. You got right, but principle's still the same. So what you do is complete the sentence below by selecting the appropriate option from the pick list. So here is our pick list. We've got physical controls, segregation of duties, supervision. So they're planning to hire a HR manager. This should enable what between the HR function and the payroll function? Is it physical control, segregation of duties, or supervision? Yeah, that is what we want. So what this would do was allow to go back to that comment that I can't remember who made about ghost employees. So if you've got someone who is interviewing and then payroll, who will have to deal with all the P60s, P11Ds, P45s, P46s, all that stuff. They've got to deal with third-party evidence from HMRC. It really reduces the likelihood of a ghost employee, because obviously, why would the HR manager interview someone who doesn't exist if they know that someone else needs to do all the checks of P60s or P46s? Whereas if it's one person, they could interview, allegedly, and then pretend they had all the proper information and slip a ghost employee through. So the segregation of duties really reduces that risk of fraud. Next one, the HR manager will help to uphold the company's control environment by ensuring that disciplinary procedures are followed, wages and salaries are accounted for correctly. What have we got to? Yeah, it is disciplinary procedures, because they will make sure everyone's read the staff handbook. They will make sure the staff handbook covers everything that it should do. If we've got to really analyze the company and how it's structured, if we've got a HR manager and we've got a payroll team, the HR manager will not be dealing with payroll. So that's not the right answer. It will, however, it's all that thing. We'll all be in front of HR. You never want to be all up in front of HR. You want to keep your head down. But they obviously, you get a performance improvement plan or you get the sack. It comes under HR. Then the last one, the HR manager should review the company's bonus scheme to ensure that they do not promote unethical behavior or affordable by the company. Yeah, exactly. Again, put yourself in the scenario. Is the HR manager going to see how much money is in the bank, how much profit the business is making? Probably not. That won't be that sort of level. So they wouldn't know if it's affordable or not. But it would be, do not promote unethical behavior. It would be. So put yourself in a scenario. Would that really come under whoever this person is, and think, actually, is that a finance director kind of level job? That kind of thing. This isn't the finance manager. What would that person be doing? Would that be someone else's department? So just sort of, almost like, when I was told when it was my chartered exams, which is a case study type of exam, it's literally play the game, put yourself in the scenario. Do it that. Cool. Any questions on anything, really? On that, or anything INAC related or AAT related whilst we're here? I mean, another 20 minutes.